Heaven Official's Blessing. Chapter 61. Audio source: wuxia-world-audiobook.com. Lost Red Pearl. Inadvertent eyes red with desire. Xie Lian pulled at his earlobes. One of the earrings is gone. The people of Xianle believed that the pinnacle of cultivation was the harmony of yin and yang, the unity of male and female. The form of the gods were ever-changing, and naturally unbound by gender restrictions, shifting to men or women as they will. Thus, this belief was woven into the design of the god-pleasing costume. Throughout history, every god-pleasing martial warrior had donned adornments and accessories that possessed the form and details of both sexes, such as earrings, bracelets, etc. When Xie Lian was preparing for the role, he pierced his ears and put on a pair of earrings. It was a pair of brilliantly deep red coral pearls, lustrous and smooth, radiant and opulent, rare and sublime. However, when Xie Lian was minding his hair just then, only one of the pair of red coral pearls was left. The moment he said it was lost, Mu Qing's relaxed expression froze again, but the other two did not notice at all. Feng Xin looked all over the chamber first, inside and out, but returned empty-handed. "You're so scatter-brained, even something worn on your ears can be lost. I didn't find it in the pavilion of Xianle, so I'll go out and look on the roads. Pray to the heavens you didn't lose it during the parade." Xie Lian was puzzled too, but didn't care for it much. "Maybe. If that's the case, then there'd be no way you'd find it. If it's lost, it's lost." Mu Qing, on the other hand, brought out the broom he usually used to sweep and said quietly, "That pearl is too precious. We should at least try and look. Maybe it rolled under the bed or a shelf." He then started sweeping, and Xie Lian responded, "Then why don't we call for a few more hands to help? Crowds get handsy. We don't want people sneaking it in their pockets before we found anything," Feng Xin said offhandedly. Mu Qing was quietly checking under the bed, but when he heard Feng Xin's words, he halted, rose to his feet in a fit, and crack. The broom in his hands broke into two. Xie Lian was startled. Ever since they left the Great Martial Hall, Feng Xin was filled with complaints about Mu Qing, but the words never left his lips. Now that he saw Mu Qing blew up first, he got angry too. "What are you doing, breaking things so suddenly? Who pissed you off now?" Mu Qing replied coldly. "Why don't you tell me straight what it is you want to say, instead of casting shadows where there are none? I have nothing to do with the lost pearl." Feng Xin had always been a straightforward individual, and this was the first time hearing someone accuse him of casting shadows where there are none, and puffed a laugh from anger. "Why don't you tell that to yourself? What did I say? I didn't say you stole it, but you got all flustered." "What, feeling guilty?" Xie Lian broke out of his shock and sat up on the bed, feeling dread. "Feng Xin, that's enough." A few veins popped instantly on Mu Qing's forehead. Feng Xin really didn't think much of it, and asked in confusion, "What?" It really wasn't the right time for Xie Lian to explain, so he could only try and pacify Mu Qing. "Don't misunderstand. Feng Xin's comments were offhanded. He wasn't directing them at you." Mu Qing's clenched his fists tight, then loosened, but at last did not continue to blow up. However, his eyes were growing red, and he turned to Xie Lian, enunciating each word as he stared at him. "You don't keep your promises. No. You're wrong," Xie Lian cried. Mu Qing closed his mouth and inhaled a few times, threw a furious stink eye at Feng Xin, then without another word, ran out the door. Xie Lian jumped off the bed and was about to give chase, but was stopped in mid-step. "Your Highness, you haven't even put on shoes. It'd be a disgrace going out with your hair down and in a mess." "Help me stop him," Xie Lian ordered. "At least put on your shoes first and tie up your hair," Feng Xin said. "And leave him be. He's always weird like this. Who knows what nerve we touched now, going mental out of the blue." Mu Qing was long gone by then, and Xie Lian saw he wouldn't be able to catch up, so instead he grabbed for a hair tie to fasten his hair in a rush. He wasn't going mental, you just accidentally said the wrong thing. Feng Xin brought out Xie Lian's usual white Trang garb from the closet and threw it at him. "What did I say wrong?" Xie Lian replied as he slipped on his boots. "I can't tell you. Anyway, come with me to go find him, and tell him it was all a misunderstanding, and that you weren't accusing him of anything." Feng Xin frowned. "What is there you can't tell me?" Xie Lian's lips were sealed tight. Feng Xin was becoming more suspicious, and thought back on Mu Qing's furious expression, and spoke up suddenly. "He didn't actually steal from you before, did he?" Xie Lian immediately waved vigorously. No. Seeing him like this, Feng Xin was even more sure. "So that's it. No wonder his temper flared. It's because he was guilty. So when did he steal?" "Not so loud," Xie Lian said anxiously. Feng Xin lowered his voice. "Something like this happened and you didn't tell me? Tell me now." Xie Lian saw that Feng Xin was already suspicious. If he continued to lie, then it'd be found out either way, so he had to relent woefully. "It doesn't really count as stealing, but sigh, I'll start from the beginning. You remember, right? 2 years ago when I first entered the Holy Royal Pavilion, there was once I lost a leaf of gold foil." Hearing this, Feng Xin's eyes widened and he slapped his thigh. "That time, 3 years ago," Xie Lian begged and pleaded in all manners of ways until finally his parents relented and permitted him to enter the Holy Royal Pavilion for Trang before the age of 20. A year later, the pavilion of Xianle completed construction. Xie Lian could at last move in, and he did so in great excitement. When Xie Lian first moved in, he really didn't bring a lot with him. Only 2 carriages full of books, and 200 treasured swords. But the queen loved her son dearly and was afraid the Trang life would be too quiet and boring. So later she ordered for 20 servants and 4 large carriages full of trinkets that the crown prince loved to be sent to Mount Taikang. The mountain caravans, impressive and dramatic. Included in this was a set of the 108 leaves that make up the Golden Foil Palace. Building a palace out of golden foils was a popular game enjoyed by the Xianle nobility. At the time, to have so much luxury enter the mountain caused a small wave of complaints. The Holy Royal Pavilion comprised of serious cultivators who weren't quite familiar with the prince's character just yet. And although they couldn't say much publicly, behind his back there was much chatter. Did His Highness the Crown Prince come to train, or did he come play? What can this son of the royal family cultivate, if he only came for fun? When Feng Xin heard those grievances, he had the mind to dispute them, but Xie Lian told him not to worry about it and smiled. "It's only natural they should think that way. They'll know after a while that I'm not here to play games, and also, who's the number 1 in this generation of trainees." However, not long after, something happened. Xie Lian was trying to send away as much of the 4 large carriages and servants the queen gifted him as possible. But when he counted inventory, he found that in the 108 leaves of gold foils, 1 was missing. That set of gold foils were packed in the carriages, and once at Mount Taikang it had never left the pavilion of Xianle. If it wasn't lost on the road, then it was stolen. Nothing was found on the road, so Xie Lian brought it up offhandedly to the head priest. However, when the head priest thought it might have been stolen, he became enraged at the idea that someone within the Holy Royal Pavilion would commit this crime under the allurement of golden foils. So he was determined to recover the golden leaf no matter what. If it should be found on the person of anyone, the punishment would be utmostly severe. Thus, all 3,000 and more disciples of the entire Mount Taikang stopped what they were doing. Got dragged into forming teams to search room after room, chamber after chamber of every single Trang hall. It was a huge fanfare, tiring out everyone. Yet unexpectedly, halfway through the search, Xie Lian suddenly corrected himself, apologized for causing everyone trouble, and said he suddenly remembered that he seemed to have already lost a leaf from that set of gold foils while he was still at the royal palace. Meaning, there should only be 107 leaves total after all. in order to investigate the whereabouts of the missing gold foil. That night at the Holy Royal Pavilion was complete chaos, utter pandemonium. And right when everyone was sweating with exhaustion, to have His Highness the Crown Prince suddenly make such an announcement to drop everything, it was inevitable for many to feel aggrieved. Thus, for the longest time there were a lot of noise behind his back, saying things like, well, he was the Crown Prince so he got to call the shots, and hopefully next time his memory would be better and remember the important things before calling for an investigation, etc. Feng Xin was furious listening to them, but Xie Lian still told him to let it go, and let time pass quietly. Sure enough, after that Xie Lian was indeed able to change things around completely, rising to unashamedly become the #1 trainee of the Holy Royal Pavilion, over all 3,000 and some disciples. Because he was truly friendly and easygoing and not at all dependent on his background, gradually his reputation improved amongst the others. Feng Xin wasn't one to remember the petty details, so he had forgotten this had happened. Now that it was brought up again, it dawned on him, and he was shocked and angry. It was Mu Qing who walked away with that gold foil? Shush! Xie Lian hushed him and looked around to make sure no one was around. That gold foil leaf fell out of the rattling carriage while coming up the mountain. Mu Qing was passing by while carrying water, and found it in the bushes. He kept it under his bed and hadn't figured out what to do with it, but that very night the head priest suddenly struck, ordering everyone to search rooms. I didn't know him at the time, and only saw an errand boy who looked distraught. Later, while I was sitting outside, he came up to serve me tea and admitted everything. That's how I found out. Taking without telling is stealing. So you helped him bury this matter, and told everyone that gold foil was lost in the royal palace. While they were talking, Xie Lian had finished dressing, and head out the door. That's how it is. Feng Xin was going to die from rage. He followed after Xie Lian. Your Highness, did you know that when you first came to the Holy Royal Pavilion, just how much people talked shit about you? Keep it down, Xie Lian said. He really did look quite distraught at the time. Pale as a ghost. People here at the Holy Royal Pavilion already dislike him. If I had said anything, his life here would be over. Our places in life are different, and we stand on different vantage points in this matter, so consequences can't be compared. Just then, a few young trainees approached them, and courteously bowed, their faces full of smiles greeting them. Your Highness. Xie Lian smiled back, and the two parties brushed past each other. He said to Feng Xin, see, I told you to give it time. Now I get along with everyone. Who dare say anything bad about me? The two of them entered Mu Qing's bedchamber but didn't see a soul, so they exited again to keep searching. I already thought it strange at the time, since I'd never known you to have lost any leaves at the palace, Feng Xin said. But I can't believe you didn't tell me about this for 2 years, and even told me that you met him when he was sweeping. Later he asked me not to tell anyone, Xie Lian said. Since I agreed, of course I wouldn't tell, not even to you. But now that you know, I'm the one who went back on my word. But you mustn't tell anyone else. How does that even count as going back on your word? Feng Xin said. It's not like you told me anything, it's his own guilty conscience making him freak out that gave himself away. No, you promise me right now that this stops here. Otherwise I'll break up my relationship with you, and you'll be cursed to never find a wife. Xie Lian threatened. Feng Xin PFFT ed. You break up with me? The day after our breakup, everyone in the Xianli kingdom will know one thing. His Highness the Crown Prince fainted from overly tight suspenders while dressing himself. Fine. I won't say a word. Who gives a shit about gossiping anyway? After a pause, he still decided to comment. I bet he thinks I'm always picking on him because he thought I knew about the gold foil business, but really, I just don't like people like him. A grown-up man thinking too much about this and that. He must have suspected you having told me a long time ago. Even concubines in the harem don't have thoughts and moods as twisted as his. So annoying. It's not as bad as you say, Xie Lian said. The Holy Royal Pavilion had never lost anything before, meaning this was his first time, and at the end of the day it was for his mother. Anyway, he already assuredly promised that he would never do it again, so giving him another chance isn't wrong. And he kept his word. Besides, today when that little kid fell, if Mu Qing didn't cooperate with me, the parade wouldn't have ended so smoothly either. Feng Xin clicked his tongue. You're already going down in history for only 3 rounds around the capital. Of course he won't do anything else to you. Your Highness, I'm gonna say this right now, I don't believe a word of anything he said at the Great Martial Hall. Who here in the Holy Royal Pavilion didn't know when the head priest played cards he hears and sees no one? He had to pick that time to pass on the message, and stubbornly refused to clarify under whose orders he was sent, as if he's purposely trying to screw things up. Xie Lian shook his head and said gravely, actually, in regards to this, I might have been indelicate too. I knew Mu Qing is disliked, so originally I wanted him to run more errands for me, let people know that he's my personal attendant so they'd be nicer to him. I didn't realize they're already nasty to that point. Not only did things mess up, he got bullied too. If you think about it from his perspective, you'll find he's moody for a reason. Feng Xin disagreed wholeheartedly. Why is it your fault that he's moody? You're the crown prince. How did you end up owing anyone anything for promoting them? Your Highness, I really don't understand why you think so highly of him. Xie Lian grinned. Feng Xin, did you know, there are so many people in this world that are nothing but rocks in my eyes? Feng Xin didn't understand. Xie Lian walked with his hands behind his back. Rocks are everywhere, but precious jades are hard to come by. When it comes to martial arts, I've only ever seen 2 people who could be called jades. One is you, the other is him. He suddenly stopped in his step, turned his head around, his eyes shining brightly. I truly think that Mu Qing is extremely gifted. Such a precious jade, how can it be sad to let dust collect and hide its beauty just because of backgrounds and temper? Xie Lian looked determined. No, I think that's wrong. You ask why I think so highly of him? It's the same reason as why I think so highly of you. Ones that are destined to shine, I must let them shine. Besides, I don't believe that goodwill brings bad returns. Feng Xin stopped too. After listening to Xie Lian's speech, he scratched his head. As long as you know what you want, how you do it is your business. Yes. So, where did Mu Qing run off to? Xie Lian said. Just then, another couple of young trainees approached them, a basket in their hands, playing around. When they saw Xie Lian, they called out to him in unison, their voices happy. Your Highness. Xie Lian responded with a smile too. The trainees came up to them and thrusted the basket before the two, saying happily, Will your Highness have some cherries? They've been washed in the springs already, very clean, and very sweet. The basket was full of red little round cherries, looking rather precious. Xie Lian and Feng Xin picked out a few to eat, and they were indeed juicy and sweet. One of the young trainees asked, When we walked over we heard your Highness asking about Mu Qing. Were you looking for him? I think we saw him when we passed through the cherry woods. Is that right? Thanks for letting me know, Xie Lian said. Thus the two walked hastily towards the cherry woods. Atop Mount Taikang, other than the abundant wild maples, there were also many fruit trees. Peaches, pears, oranges, and among the many fruit trees were also cherry trees. The fruit trees were nourished by springs, bathed in the mountainous mist and sunny dews, bearing fruits filled with spiritual aura. Other than offering them as tribute to the palace, the rest were only reserved for the disciples in the pavilion who can munch after a day's hard work. Outside the Holy Royal Pavilion, even 100 gold pieces would be hard to buy just one. The cherry trees stood row after row, and within the fresh new leaves hung beads after beads of red pearl like cherries, looking delightfully enticing. Xie Lian and Feng Xin walked for a while looking for Mu Qing in the woods. But soon after, they heard quarreling voices coming from just a of where they were, and they unconsciously slowed to a stop.